video broadcast, feel free to contact me or any of our the human officials that we have here today. So it's will be a pleasure being in your broadcasting radio. About the role of the Cuban doctors during the Ebola pandemic, we have to say that despite of all the efforts, all the heroic acts and things that the Cuban doctors made during those years, and before that and after that, the retribution that the Cuban medical system and the Cuban government and the Cuban doctors have received from the U.S. government and from the right political forces in the U.S. is considering slaves the Cuban doctors. So this is the point that the United States government has sustained for years, in the last maybe 10 years, regarding the work and the heroic actions that our doctors have made during the Ebola, during the COVID, but since 1963, when the first Cuban medical brigade went to Algeria at that time. So now the consideration by the U.S. government, by the many forces in the U.S. Congress, is that the Cuban doctors are unpaid, the Cuban doctors are slaves, which is a manipulation, it's a lie, and it's incredible because the amount of work that and the amount of consultations, the amount of people that the work of the Cuban doctors have saved for decades is so huge that it's really a lack of respect, the labeling of the Cuban doctors as slaves. So, and this is the way in which the U.S. government continuously try to manipulate the facts around the Cuban Revolution, around everything that the Cuban government used to make, either for the Cuban people or for the rest of the world, is a permanent distortion of facts, a permanent manipulations about the reality. And you have now continuous report about by the U.S. government about imposing sanctions. Even last week, the U.S. Congress, and it became law last week, that allowed the Department of State and the White House to suspend visas for foreign officials who will be involved in the hiding Cuban medical brigades in their countries. They would be prevented to get a visa to enter in the U.S. because of the involvement in the slavery of the Cuban doctors. That's the way in which the U.S. has converted or transformed the work that the Cuban doctor has made for decades. Now they are slaves. We are the Cuban government are using them and just to using the financial contribution that they can make for the benefit of the Cuban government to repress the Cuban people when all the money that the Cuban government obtained from the medical services as a basis of the South-South cooperation for decades is used to sustain the free healthcare system in Cuba and to sustain other social services. So this is, so I really appreciate the question that the Masala made because it allowed me to explain other example of the big manipulation and the big lie against Cuba to justify the sanctions and to justify the blockade.
Yeah, it's
Maybe Samira can help me.
no, not so much, but just to add that I studied with a few students who came from Sierra Leone, and even recently, it was 2022. We were at Guantanamo for the conference on peace. When we met one stellar Sierra Leonean student who was studying there in that province. He was doing his clinical years there, and he was in his final year. And so for years, you see, it's not a huge number of a group of Sierra Leonean students who study in Cuba, but there are small pockets that are given scholarships every year. So it would be an excellent idea to, share information with your audience and expose them to examples of this other comrade that I just remembered, who did study in Cuba, who are doing well, and went back to Sierra Leone. So, this is important information we should share.
Good question. Good evening, everyone. Is the mic on? I can't tell.
Yeah.
My name is Omari Musa. I'm active with the DC Metro Coalition in solidarity with the Cuban Revolution. I wanted to just point out a couple of things. What the embargo is the policy of the United States government. Doesn't matter whether it's Democrats or Republicans who are in the White House, the Green House, whatever other house. Even the so-called liberal president, Barack Obama, who was forced to make some concessions, he explained that that's what it was. What happened before didn't work, so let's try something else. And the major thing they wanted to try was the dollar power. And that's what was pushed by the Obama administration. He came to Cuba, spoke to the Cuban people, said, let's forget about the past. Now, this was the last year of his administration. He had been in already 7 years. The blockade was still in effect. So, and it's still in effect. It is the policy from 1959 to today of the US government, irrespective of the change of individuals in the White Houses and so on, to impose these restrictions on Cuba. Some of which, as we pointed out in the National Network on Cuba, an organization we're a part of in the DC Metro Coalition that's national and cooperates internationally with others, have pointed out that with the stroke of a pen, the current president could take Cuba off the list of countries that sponsor terrorism. And here we are. He has his pen doesn't work, and Cuba's not on his agenda. That's what we are fighting against. That's what we are fighting against. We want to educate as many people as possible about what is really Cuba. They don't know there's a medical school in Cuba. Most people in the United States don't know that. So we have to inform them. Part of that is get some of the students in the United States to do what Samira did. Apply herself, get enlisted, and go to Cuba and become a medical doctor. Long live your sister. But we need more of that. But we need more of you who organize everywhere we are, whatever group we're in, to demand the United States take Cuba off the list of countries that sponsor terrorism and to end the blockade. To end the blockade. As was explained in 1902, the United States decided they're going to take part of Cuba. They're still there in Guantanamo. You remember when they had the so-called terrorists and they put them in jail? Where did they put them? In Guantanamo. That's a part of Cuba. So we call for the United States to get out of Guantanamo. These are just our demands. This is what we talk to people about. We think they're very reasonable. So I urge all of you here to participate in not just the activities of the DC Metro Coalition, but any other coalition that you're a part of. We'll find speakers if that's what you want to discuss the situation in Cuba and the role of the United States government and why it has its policy. Cuba is an example to working people all over the world. That's what the United States hates. They're not an example just for Latin America. That's what Fidel says. That's what he said. They're an example for the whole world, including us here. Now, we can do what the Cubans did. We got more stuff than they got. We got 300 million people here in the United States. We have to educate to cause this country to be not ruled by the ruling rich, but by the people themselves through our own organization. That's our long-range task. Thank you very much.
I just want to interject to this discussion. There's also in Cuba the best film school for Latin Americans and Africans.
Put the mic to your mouth.
Don't worry about that.
We can't hear you.
I invented the mic. So that is, I want to interject that. The other thing is, it's also under Obama, the Black Attorney General that they upped Asara Shukura's
That's
bounty.
right.
So the illusion, I hope, is melting down in terms of, the black. If ever a black becomes a president, things will be better. That's all I just want to say. So anybody
point.
have a question?
Any other?
One here, 1 second.
Okay. For those who did not, Ali, Riemann? Yes, this is the owner
I'm
of
helping.
this matter. Yes, all right. We thank you, thank you.
Can the medical student or the Cuban embassy talk about the organization IFCO a little bit, how they assist in helping the medical doctor be a doctor here and abroad and here?
Hold up, Craig.
Guys, please, in the back, please. Go ahead, you finished, brother?
Yes, you understand the question?
Yes,
I
sir.
think they did.
Thank you for your question. Very important. So IFCO, Passes for Peace, is an organization, it's a nonprofit organization that's based in New York. It's been in existence since 1967. But it has had this huge role of administering the scholarship for US citizens to study in Cuba, to study at the Latin American School of Medicine since, the first class went in 2001, okay? So this scholarship is just a piece of the history of IFCO. I don't wanna bore everybody with the larger history, but IFCO has been around the block for a minute, okay? And it's been an anti-imperialist organization, embedded in the community, trying to do our best to support, just causes. So in the history of IFCO, it was in 1992 that the organization started caravans taking people and humanitarian aid down to Cuba in order to break the blockade, in defiance of the blockade, because at that period, Cuba was going through a very hard crisis known as a special period. And so, in a way, to absorb the shock, of pain that our government was causing, a lot of everyday people went down with our late founder, Reverend Lucius Walker, and taught Cuban people about the love that American people have for them, despite all this propaganda. And so through that history of going back and forth and encouraging exchange and people going down and seeing Cuba themselves. Sorry, you okay? Okay. Came this opportunity to take up administering the scholarship for U.S. citizens. And so this scholarship is unique because it's for U.S. citizens that are coming from disadvantaged communities, underrepresented communities in medicine. And the goal is to bridge the gap for those of us who have for centuries been kept out of the halls of medical college in the United States for various reasons. One of them being the debilitating debt that people have to go into in order to pursue medicine. I encourage everybody to look up the speech that Fidel Castro made in the year 2000 at the Riverside Church. I'm sure you can find it on YouTube. But that is where you hear the pronouncement of this commitment of the Cuban revolutionary government to the struggling peoples of the United States in giving this scholarship to the youth, right? And so the goal is for anybody who is between the ages of 18 to 25. Exceptions are made for people over 25, as long as you're not over 30. You're a U.S. citizen, that you have, a valid passport. Unfortunately, you can't accept those who are green card holders. But if you're a U.S. citizen, you can apply for the scholarship. And also, if you have taken a full year of college level sciences, 4 in particular, biology, general chemistry, organic chemistry, and physics. And you have a commitment to your community, to coming back and serving in your community, wherever that is in the United States. That's the social contract of this scholarship. It is not something that is written that anybody will chase you to make sure you do. But that's the essence of the Cuban promise, is that we look into the hearts of people and expect them to live up to their words, right? And so people who are pursuing this scholarship should be the kind who have some inclination to serve the people. And so that is the story about the scholarship. Anybody who's interested, I have my cards I can share. Unfortunately, I didn't bring brochures, but you can visit the website www.ifconews.org to get more information about the scholarship, and how to request an application. We just had a deadline of March 15th, but if you are somebody who knows you wanna do this is what you wanna do, send us, your request and talk to us, and we will figure it out. The goal is definitely to educate people about Cuba firsthand, but empower our communities when this question of health comes up, right? Because our communities are underserved and underrepresented in medicine, not because only doctors are the ones who are the guardians of health. All of us are guardians of health, but we do better in faring and maintaining our health when we have people who look like us taking care of us. And so it is everybody's charge here to spread the word to any youth, Please start talking to them as young as elementary school about, studying medicine in Cuba as a goal, because it is important that you plant that seed early. Sister from the 1DC chorus mentioned planting seeds. We believe in planting seeds of hope and truth, and this is one of them. Everyone should seek to be at the kind of position you are trained to be in Cuba, which is one that is rooted in community, that is not, caught up in titles, but caught up in making sure that you're learning every day, improving, and doing the best you can to solve the problems, the immediate problems of your community. And you can only know that or do that if you are aware and constantly searching for those problems. And that's what we learn in Cuba. You don't just make up treatment plans and programs, health programs just arbitrarily. You make up health programs that are targeted to the problems that your people are suffering from, and that they want a solution to. So I could go on and on about, Cuban medicine and the gift that keeps giving. But please look us up and share the information about this scholarship.
I want to invite people. I want to invite people who have more to say about their programs and questions about Cuba to come upstairs. We're exhausting our time down here. We have a conference table set up. If you order refreshments, we'll take care of it. So we can, we have a calendar so we can begin to put our dates on there, the conferences and the events. So as you finish here, it'll come out.
We'll do two burning questions. Anybody who did, I know I saw hands here we didn't address. If you have a burning question, quickly here, 2 people we can take. Nobody?
Question.
Oh, sorry, my brother. You're too tall for me to say.
That's okay. All right. So,
One second, let him finish. I'll bring you the mic. Go ahead.
all right. Beyond the aspects of Cuba having a home, or the Cuban people having a home, is there or is there not a way in which the Cuban people resent the idea of the idea of having the Cuban people support Palestine or Gaza?
What you are asking is about the position of the Cuban
Correct.
people, the
Yes.
Cuban government regarding
Yes.
the conflict.
Yes.
Well, for decades, even before the beginning of the Cuban Revolution, the position of Cuba has been to defend the right of the Palestinian people to have a territory and to constitute or to create a Palestinian state. And so that has been the position that we have kept very in a very permanent way, in a very tough manner in the international arena, at the UN, and in any international stage. And now, after we have seen this extermine the genocide against the Palestinian people. In Gaza, we are even more committed to that. You can read and you can check all the statements by the president of the Republic of Cuba, by our Ministry of Foreign Affairs, in a very striking way, in a very clear way, defending the rights of the Palestinian people and against the genocide that we have been seeing during after October 3rd and even before. And that commitment, that position is unwavering, and we continue to believe that the international community has to find a solution and a negotiation to solve and to finally give the right to the Palestinian people for create a Palestinian state.
The last question.
Hello. It's not really like a question. It's not. I don't know. It's like a question. First, I want to open with an apology because I'm kind of ignorant to some of the things that we're talking about. And it's like, if you don't know and you're not going through this moment, then you really wouldn't know. So I'd like to apologize for that. I was saying I didn't want to talk about politics today to the young ladies who worked me in here, and I just happened to walk into something I needed to hear. So my problem is I feel like I'm not trying to take away what you are talking about, but I really do understand what you're saying. And it's like we have a lot of races that are being wiped out. And I really have a problem with that. So listening to y'all talk, it's like really opening up my eyes even more to other things that are going on. So I would like to gather information after this if I can. And thank you for letting me speak.
Yes.
Okay, whoever takes it, my brother.
Yeah, go ahead, Holly.
Yeah?
You have something?
No, I have nothing because I was just serving the people,
Thank you.
Cuban style.
We'd like to thank Alexander for allowing us to use this facility. Thank you.
Just to encourage the sister, it is good.
Attention.
It's beautiful that you shared with us your perspective, and don't feel bad about it, that you have taken a bold step and pronounced that you didn't know and you want to seek more information. I would invite you to not only visit IFCO's website, but also the NNOC, the National Network on Cuba, DC's Coalition in Solidarity with the Cuban Revolution is another local group that is invested in this. There's other groups, Friends of Latin America, that I'm a part of, based in, well, we're all over, but it's in the Maryland, Howard County area, most of the members are in. But there are local groups, and there are people who either have traveled to Cuba in different times and are also leading new groups to go to Cuba. The National Network on Cuba is going there for May Day this year. It's an annual trip, so if you can't make it this year, maybe you can plan to go next year. But to see Cuba for yourself is one of the best ways to learn more about the struggle and more about the history, and invite others to also learn with you, because you would do it in a group, and it's one of the best ways to learn with other people who also don't know that much about Cuba. So thank you for sharing, and I hope we can build a relationship of learning with you.
Thank you. I don't want to take up too much, but when you were speaking, everything that y'all said, I started Googling. So I do have everything y'all was talking about.
Just remember that the idea and the goal of the U.S. media and the U.S. government for decades has been that exactly to keep ignorant the American people about Cuban reality and about the Cuban any positive thing of the relation between Cuba and the U.S. So don't feel bad about that. Okay.
Exactly.
Right on. I'd like to thank our guests for being here with us and informing us again about what's going on in Cuba. And as she stated, and we want to mention, May Day is coming soon. And we have delegations that we can point you to
if you are interested in going to Cuba for May Day, if you ever been to Cuba and May Day, that's something that you would want to see. And I've experienced it several times, but this is something if you want to see people celebrate the Day of the Workers around the world. Go to Cuba if you want to see 1 million people marching in unison in celebration of May Day.
Which is originally is in the history of the U.S., not the
Yes.
history of Cuba, but the origin of the day work.
Yes, but you don't see it being celebrated here very much. But as I stated, if you want more information on the May Day brigades that are going down, and they'll spend 2 weeks, so you really will get a chance to talk with the people, travel with the people, and meet people from all over the world that are coming to Cuba. And you wonder why? You need to be there. So we would give you information if you like. We would give you information on the next brigade that's going down Cuba for May Day. And we thank you all for your questions. And
No. Just, we have an organization here of people from the diaspora who support Cuba. Can she just give a short statement?
Okay, so I prepared a quick solidarity statement. Thank you. So I prepared a quick solidarity statement, really quick. So hello everyone, my name is Daylene. I want to first and foremost acknowledge.
Do you have your attention in the back, please?
Thank you. I want to first and foremost acknowledge my appreciation for Sankofa in hosting such an inspiring and welcoming space to celebrate the triumphs of the Cuban Revolution. And I say this not only as a Cuban born and raised on the island, but as someone who just feels the need to carry the legacy of Fidel Castro amongst the working class people of the world. Cuba finds itself today still trudging along a 64-year-long battle with the largest imperialist force of the 21st century. Every hallmark that my country achieves, whether it's our doctors, our medicine, our generosity, our commitment to our community, and our unwavering solidarity with countries like Palestine, Puerto Rico, Haiti, Bolivia, Nicaragua, Angola, South Africa, Burkina Faso, Congo, the list goes on and on. These stances are labeled as a source of terrorism. There is a war against the poor, and those that fight against back alienation and colonialism are labeled as terrorists. So Cuba now pays economic and social consequences for aiding resistance movements across the global South, for standing with the working class people of the United States and every other country that requests our need and medical assistance. My people have a kind of valor that will never be understood by the running dogs of imperialism that this country deems as the great senators and representatives of Capitol Hill.
Hello.
We're reaching a peak of political consciousness within the American public. And I believe that we must take advantage of this strategic time to make strides for anti-imperialism. Cuba is in a crucially dangerous situation. We all know the true intentions behind economic blockades, and it has stood its ground for the past 6 decades, sitting and waiting for the day regime change would come. History will not absolve this empire, but it will absolve the soldiers that fought against it. And with the onslaught of the labor movement, the deep mistrust against the US government after the 60,000 deaths that occurred and continues to occur in Palestine, the movement for liberation in Puerto Rico, the working class people are once again replicating the lessons of the Cuban Revolution that we must forever uphold. Patria o muerte, venceremos. Thank you.
As we stated, I'd like to thank you all for coming out and supporting us, our guests. And as we stated, we have a list being passed around, hopefully, for those who need more information, put your name, telephone number, and email address on it, and we will get back with you and invite you to whatever programs, activities, from marching in front of the White House, marching at the UN, or just organizing, bringing people together and working with other coalition of people in support of the Cuban Revolution. We thank you.
Yeah.
Vamos con los mexicanos.
There also there's more than one coalition, obviously, in the Washington area. So any Washington area coalition, please be a part of.
Yeah, but we don't have a. Now we can put the chairs back. Oh, that's your bed. The chairs go.
You don't want to rent it to us for a little while longer?
You'd like to have a seat so I can open the door.
I see you guys. Did you sign up? Yeah.